bring you this conversation now. ActionSA is calling on the IEC to probe funding disclosures by the EFF and the MK Party. They're arguing that the figures don't support their election campaigns. The Red Berets declared just over R500,000 from MTN, while the MK Party received over 380,000 Rand from non-profit organization. It's called the South African Education Initiative. Now, ActionSA's national chairperson is Michael Beaumont. He joins us now on the line to talk to us about exactly what their concerns are. Mr. Beaumont, good evening to you, and thank you very much for your time. Let's understand, firstly, your suspicions. Where do they come from and why?
Well, our suspicions have to be the suspicions of every South African who witnessed these two political parties in question run election campaigns that would have run into the hundreds of millions of rands. Both of these political parties were filling stadia, transporting tens of thousands of people to these events. They were flooding the country with posters and banners. They were very well-resourced political parties, and yet when you look at the disclosures that they have made to the IEC, that is not the picture that is emerging. And we are growing increasingly concerned that the IEC is taking a very laissez-faire approach of basically indicating that unless a political party self-incriminates, they aren't going to investigate. There is no possibility that we can financially hold political parties to account in the Party Funding Act if their campaigns patently are not justified by their declarations, and the IEC takes no interest in these matters.
To your calculations, let's start with the EFF. It says it received something just above 500,000 Rand, while the MK Party says close to 380,000 is what they received. What are your calculations and what do you base that on if you have figures in mind?
We have, in fact. We've looked at their declarations. The EFF declared 3.5 million Rand since the start of the financial year 2022-2023. And the MK Party has declared 380,000 Rand since its inception. The reality is the rally at F&B Stadium alone for the EFF was rumored to cost in excess of 70 million Rand. And we know that both of these parties flighted posters that would have run well above 50 million Rand in budget. The simple truth is that their declarations do not explain their election campaigns. There have been rumors of foreign funding, lots of stories of campaigns funded in cash on the ground. And again, what this is really creating, Kali, is a system where those who abide by the law and make their declarations have to jump through hoops and have to work to bring people along with them in their compliance. And yet those who don't just continue without any consequence. And that's the thing that we need to change.
Well, these parties may well come back and say, prove what you are saying, ActionSA, otherwise this is all defamatory.
They're most welcome to. We would welcome them to take us to court. And in that discovery process, we would be seeking their invoices for their campaign expenses. I suspect they wouldn't be that foolish because at the end of the day, there is just simply no way that their campaigns can be justified by those disclosures. But you make an important point. There needs to be an investigation. ActionSA is not here to say we know how these things were funded. We don't know. But what we need to do is reorientate a conversation in South Africa. Right now, the obsession is about the political parties that are making disclosures, and those are dissected to the nth degree. But those are the disclosures of people who are willing to act transparently. What about those who aren't, and those who are insidiously influencing the policy making and decision making of political parties and are holding back their identity from the South African people? That's the conversation we aren't having as a country.
Why do you think the IEC seems okay with just taking what political parties are presenting to it as the gospel truth? In your view...
I think it's a couple of factors.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is that the IEC has had the investigative function of the Party Funding Act dumped on them, but they aren't an institution with any muscle memory as it relates to investigation. They're not a law enforcement agency. They don't have any institutional memory in that regard. So really, it is a difficult exercise. But I think part of it is just a lack of will, because what the IEC has said as it relates to the Ezulweni investments matter, which is another matter we will be approaching the courts on as it relates to the ANC's debt settlement of the 102 million rand agreement with Ezulweni Investments, is that there's no prima facie case to investigate. So according to the IEC, they really will only rely upon self-incriminations of a political party before they take the time to investigate, notwithstanding the very public record that is available to suggest that there's no way that deal can be lawful in terms of the Party Funding Act.
So in this instance, therefore, how do you plan to force the IEC to investigate if, as you say, they simply don't have capacity?
Well, as it relates to the Ezulweni investments, we've announced legal action today. So now that they've indicated that they are not proceeding with the investigation they initially said they were going to proceed with in March this year, we are going to approach the courts, and we're firstly going to ask for their record of decision making. In other words, a public institution like the IEC, in exercising public power, must be receiving scrutiny. And if there's an application for their record of decision, they must make available all documentation that form part of the decision-making process not to proceed with that investigation. I suspect, and I imagine you do as well, Tolly, that what you're going to find is underwhelming because there was not a proper consideration of this issue. And I doubt the IEC has even looked at the debt settlement agreement between the ANC and Ezulweni Investments.
Yeah.
In that regard, we will then have the opportunity to approach the High Court and ask the High Court to require the IEC to conclude this investigation.
Before we end our conversation, can I take you back to part of what you said, I think, in your statement today, specifically around the MK Party funding? The suspicion there is that there may be foreign funding. Now, if memory serves, that is no longer allowed as per the Political Party Funding Act. And if so, if your suspicions are anything to go by, is there anything that you can back that up with? Because that seems quite serious.
Indeed, it is. There's obviously no evidence at this stage that we can use to substantiate that concern. We were very clear to reference it as rumors that have gone around, but I think gone around sufficiently that they need to form part of an investigation. The MK's case, as it relates to this particular issue, is so absurd that a party can declare as little as 380,000 rand and run a campaign that is estimated to have run over 100 million rands in expenses. That is such an egregious violation of the Party Funding Act that it raises very serious questions indeed. And the MK Party is going to need to respond to those through an appropriate investigation initiated by the IEC. The only question is whether the IEC will do so voluntarily or whether they will require us to get the courts to assist them in that exercise.
Michael Beaumont is the national chairperson of ActionSA. Thank you very much for your time. And, well, the allegations have been made on this platform. The only thing we can do from our side is to encourage the parties that are being accused of underhanded behavior. If you wish to come through and dispute what Mr. Beaumont has had to say, you're welcome to come through, including the IEC.